Welcome to Inhale, Exhale, Elevate. I am Autumn Shelton. I'm thrilled to welcome today's guest, Yvette McDowell, who has made it her life's work to increase the number of female voices in leadership positions, focusing primarily on women first responders and on women in the corporate realm. With 30 plus years of experience as a first responder, firefighter, and paramedic, and an assistant city prosecuting attorney, she's been busy. She has lived in the challenges of being a woman in a man's world. Equal justice under cannabis law for all has become Yvette's motto. Her ultimate focus is to educate those in power and make sure that regulation is tolerant in its impact and is inclusive of the entire community. Working side by side with city and county governments to educate and foster economic growth will bridge the communication gap between local government and the community regarding the cannabis industry. Regulation should be followed, but not overly burdensome. As an Amazon best-selling and a #1 international best-selling author, Yvette wants to help create a paradigm shift in the cannabis industry where equal justice under cannabis law becomes a reality for all choosing to enter this exciting field.
Welcome to Inhale, Exhale, Elevate podcast. I am Autumn Shelton. This is a podcast hosted from our Santa Barbara Coast family cannabis farm to help keep your feet on the ground and your head in the sky. Autumn Brands and our female founders have a message that goes beyond just flowers. Learn about how our two families created a booming cannabis company that is leading the industry towards cleaner and more sustainable cannabis production. We aspire to move beyond strictly cannabis to help plant medicine lose the stoner stigma as we talk about all things holistic health.
Welcome, Yvette.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Can you share your story and a bit about yourself?
Oh my God. Well, it sounds like you sort of summed it up for me. I spent a lot of years with municipal government of City of Pasadena. And I really believe that's where a lot of my foundation was solidified in doing my work. When you're in the fire service, you get to see life at its worst. Many times you will see, I say life at its best as well. And what I mean by that, delivering babies. I delivered 9 babies in my career.
Wow.
And that to me is the best of life. And then you see some of the horrific things that people go through in terms of trauma. So I've got to see the worst of life and what the best of life can bring. And then transitioning over to the city attorney's office, becoming a prosecutor, you also get to see some of the best and worst in life. So I spent half of my time with fire service and then the other half of my time as a prosecutor, and believe that it has really made me a well-rounded person in that respect. So that, that kind of sums me up. Before I entered the cannabis space, it was one of those things I had to laugh because when it was first introduced to me, my initial reaction was, no, I do not want to get involved with the cannabis space because as a prosecutor, I prosecuted a lot of cannabis cases, believe it or
Yeah,
not.
I can imagine.
A lot of them. And it brought me to a realization that we're prosecuting people over a plant that grows and the unintended consequences of people going through prosecution was really a mind blower to me because so many barriers were put in place. If you were convicted of a cannabis conviction as a young person in particular, you couldn't get student loans, housing. I mean, there was just so much that you couldn't do. So what I started to do was create my own little diversion program when somebody would come in with a case. And if they did the little things that I asked them to do and provided me proof, some way that I can verify, then I would dismiss their case, and then I tell them, okay, I see you back in here again. It's going to be different next time. So I really felt good about doing that and giving people an opportunity to move forward with their life and not be burdened with the barriers for having some simple possession, or things like that.
Who or what brought cannabis or that idea of looking at it so differently, looking at this incredible plant differently than how you'd been perceiving it?
Well, I had never perceived it as being a bad thing. I was just simply following the law because as a prosecutor, we're bound by the penal code and certain other codes. So that's the lens that I was looking at it as a prosecutor. But again, just it became ridiculous to me to look at it from that lens. And so after I retired from the city, which was in 2008, I got to spend a lot of time with my mom, who was getting older. And it was in 20, let's see, probably 6 years before she passed. She passed in May 2017. 6.5 years prior to that, she started with dementia, started developing that. And then 3 years after that, we started noticing beginning signs of Parkinson's. And so I
Oh, wow.
traveled a 3.5 year journey with her from the initial diagnosis of Parkinson's, and just watching how that disease debilitated a woman who was so vibrant, so
Yeah.
active. I was doing some reading, and I was reading on some of the medicinal benefits that cannabis was providing for Parkinson's, which was a little too late for her because she had advanced so far that there was nothing that could help at that time, and she had went on hospice. So I made a vow to her that I would fight for people to have choices in their medical treatment, and that involved cannabis, and that's what I was going to do. So that was my last promise to her, that I will fight for people to have choice, and that's what led me to the cannabis space. So once
I
I,
love it.
I did that, I got involved in 2017 and tried to figure out, okay, where am I going to fit? What do I need to do to help people and fight?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was introduced to a concept called social equity, which I had never heard before. And when I learned about social equity, I was like, doggone it, this is where I'm going to land right here. Because I truly believe in equal justice under
Yeah.
law. When I read that in front of the Supreme Court building, I was like, this is my motto: equal justice under cannabis law. And I've been involved with social equity ever since.
I love it. It's an incredible story and journey to get to this point. So tell us a little bit about what a day in the life of a vet looks like and how that journey's kind of brought you to this point, and your focus on social equity.
Yeah, I would say a day in my life consists of a lot of Zoom calls. I'm always on Zoom calls with somebody, or researching, or talking with social equity applicants, or reviewing contracts or operating agreements. Uh, Man, playing in my backyard. I like doing that. That's my escape, my relaxation. I have two beautiful German shepherds that I
Oh,
love playing with, and they love getting in my way when I'm in the backyard. So it's, being with family. Uh, that is my life in a nutshell. You know,
sounds like
I,
a great day.
well, I'll tell you what, I vowed that I don't want to work 40 hours a week anymore, 50 hours a week,
Hmm.
that this is my time to do
Yeah.
me. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I am able to pick and choose who I want to work with or not. And that's what I do. You know,
Self-care is so important. So it's good
self-care is
and
critical.
honor
After,
you.
whoa, I would say after spending maybe 40 years in the workforce, now it's my time. And since 2018 or 2008, I've been doing Yvette.
I love it.
I've
Well,
been doing
well,
Yvette.
tell us a little more about the county work that you're doing right now, because I know how important that is, and
Yeah.
you're making some big waves and big changes right now that are impacting a lot of lives.
Well, a lot of things I can't talk about because they're still in progress.
Okay.
But what I can tell you is that I teamed up with equity applicant, or equity entrepreneur, as I like to say, Kika Keith. She's the first African American female to open a dispensary in Los Angeles. So the two of us went to the county and we made our proposal. We talked to them. I really courted the county representatives for probably 6 months prior to being offered a contract. And initially, when I was doing it, I was not doing it for a contract. I hadn't even thought about it. I just happened to meet these people in the same meeting that we were in. And we started talking about the county coming on board and finally wanting to enter into the regulated space. And so striking up a friendship, that friendship continued for 6 months. And I was asked at that time, why don't you apply? And I said, I really had not even thought about it. And I said, okay, I'm going to apply. So I went to my partner and I said, let's apply for the contract for the county. And as time went on, we ultimately won the contract for a 6-month period. And what was so wonderful to me is our first meeting with the county team. The first question I ask is, why Kika and myself? Why did you choose us?
Why
And
not?
the things that they said, you know what? They said that you guys have been here for us for 6 months. Anytime we had questions, we weren't sure about something, you guys were always there to answer them for us. And we knew at that point in time that you two were the best people out of all of these other groups that came along. We knew you two. And based on your experience on the ground, we were it. We were it.
The groundwork.
The groundwork.
And the trust.
Exactly.
It's so important. And they knew that you guys were going to be solid in what you did and that you're always going to be there for them, whether there was a financial payment or not.
Yes.
And that's
exactly
crucial.
Oh, and that's what we did. We built that level of trust with them, and they knew that they could call on us for anything and that we weren't going to be too busy to respond to them. So I'm excited about that. It's all about relationship building.
Can you tell me more about DICE, what it stands for, and why it's important?
Yes, DICE. That's a committee within CCIA, or the California Cannabis Industry Association. And DICE stands for Diversity, Inclusion / Social Equity. Why is that important? Because social equity is important in the cannabis space. And to be able to have a committee to focus on those things that are paramount to success as a social equity applicant or entrepreneur, it was near and dear to my heart. And as such, I became the chair of the committee. And as time went on, I got a co-chair, thank God, because it was a lot of work doing that. And it's wonderful to share it with somebody at this point in time. Yeah. So that's why DICE is so important to me. We can tackle those issues from a legislative piece through our legislative analyst for CCIA. She is instrumental in helping us really formulate a framework for what it is we need to carry or proffer. It's allowed us to build relationships with Senator Bradford, who is our leading champion in social equity, and also the author of Senate Bill 1294, which lays out the social equity program. And that has just been amazing to watch the applicants now learn how to navigate through the political spectrum and see this is what it takes to get legislation passed. This is how we go forward and proffer things. We have to do it the right way. We have to educate people. So this is what DICE does. We put out a couple of wonderful white papers where we focused on the use of language as it pertains to the cannabis space. Oh my goodness, I forget offhand the other white paper that we put out, but both of them have been very successful. Even legislators now will look at our white papers to get correct languaging to use, because we really emphasize stop using the phrase black market. You know, when you look at the origins of black market use, it's all political. And it has the racial overtones that were meant to be that way. So that's why one of the white papers we put out was speaking about the use of language. And we really encourage people to use illicit market, underground market, whatever market, but let's not use color to define the market.
So important to get that messaging out and to continue to educate people. because I still
Absolutely.
continue to hear it from time to time and I get frustrated.
Oh yeah. You know what? When I'm in meetings and someone uses the phrase black market, I will politely interject the illicit market or the underground market,
Mm-hmm.
the illegal market. I will just interject those phrases. And I will ultimately say, you know, we really don't like using that phrase black market because it is such a derogatory term. And if you could adopt some of these other ones, God, that would be so wonderful. You know,
Just another step in breaking the stigma that we're continuing to deal
exactly.
with, but layer by
Exactly.
layer, we're getting there. Well,
Yeah.
tell us more about your book. Tell us about when did it launch? What is it about? How did you start? And yeah,
This
I
is
want to know
it.
more.
This is
Mission
Mission Critical
critical.
Messengers, How to Deliver a Difference. This was in 2012, I believe it was. It's a compilation of 13 authors with this book, and we each got a chapter. And so my chapter, which I really love, it's entitled here. Let me go to that. Your Highest Calling, the Seeds of Genius in You.
Oh.
And as I go through, there are 5 steps. One, stand in confidence, knowing who you are. 2, be a leader within your community. Step 3, communicate with power and purpose. Step 4, using conflict resolution in the office and community. And step 5, being courageous in the face of danger. All of this is taken from my background in the fire service and then becoming a prosecutor. I got involved with some of the women leaders in law enforcement. I became a co-chair for the Orange County chapter of Women Leaders in Law Enforcement. And what I find is that so many women who get into male-dominated fields lose who they are because they're so intent on proving I can do this job. Yeah, you can do this job. When I entered the fire service, was I scared? Heck yeah. I was scared coming in there, the only African American female to be there out of maybe 3 women in a sworn department of 105 people, or men, preferably.
Mm-hmm,
Some of them
mm-hmm.
did not want me there and made that known. But what they didn't understand about me is that I don't get intimidated like that. I've gone through enough in my upbringing and the works that no, you don't intimidate me. Can I do my job? Yeah, I can do my job, and I can do my job very well. And I just took the attitude that forget the talk, walk the talk.
Mm-hmm.
Show them that you can carry your weight, do the job. If you're engaged in a scenario that is going to require you to maybe assist your partner, maybe save your partner's life, then you need to show up and do that. Don't talk about it, just get it done. You're not trying to be a man, you're a woman in a man's field with a job. It's very physically demanding. I can say, Autumn, I was in the best shape of my life during that
I
time.
bet.
Oh
I
my
believe it.
God, I was in the best shape of my life. Because it's a physically demanding job. And as you go through it, again, you just want to do your job. That's it.
Yeah.
And show
Yeah.
them. And
And be you
ultimately, that's what
doing
I
that
did.
job.
Being me doing that job.
Yeah.
But over the course of years, I really gained the respect of, I would say, 95% of those men became some of my best friends. And we had such a great time together. I love them to this day. And I left the fire service in 1995. And to this very day, I still have some really close friends in the fire service, and I love them dearly. I remember when I was going to law school during my last 4 years with the department, they were my biggest cheerleaders. As I went through law school, they were always, "Where's your books? Why aren't you studying?" And then when I graduated, sitting in the audience were 2 rows of firefighters. They were there at my graduation to do
Oh,
everything. And
I
they
love
bought
it.
me this briefcase with my initials engraved on it. That was during the time when we used to carry briefcases. Some beautiful pens. I remember a Mont Blanc pen, Waterman pen. These were all my firefighter buddies had put the money
Yeah.
together to do this. And they're like, we want to see you carrying that briefcase. And we want to see you doing this and that. And so I love those guys. I love them. So it's through that experience and then experience even as a prosecutor, which the practice of law has always been male dominated. And,
Yeah.
Even though we have a lot more females now, you still had to play games with male attorneys coming in. They wanted to truly challenge you, all of that stuff. And for me, I was always like, you better bring your best shot. You better bring
Yeah.
your best shot, because you coming in after me, you can believe I'm going to give you the best of me. Simple as
I
that.
believe it.
And believe me, they got the best of me. And as time went on, I developed a lot of friends in the legal realm. Some of these high profile attorneys you've seen on television became some of my good friends. And I just remember beating several of them in court, and I never let them let it down. Because it's like, you are high profile, you're on television all the time, and I just kicked your tail.
Get it, girl. I love
Yeah,
it.
I kicked your tail, didn't I? And they became mentors to me as well. That's one thing. I'm a proponent of mentorship.
Yeah.
I think it is
So
one of the
important.
most important things that we can do is get really good mentors that will help us through. So it's all of those experiences that I brought to the table. And as I went to write the chapters in this book, it was all a reflection on that. And so working with females, I thought it was important, very important, because there's no way they could tell me, well, what do you know about working in a predominantly male field? Well, let me tell you.
I have some experience.
Yeah, I think so. Quite a bit of experience,
Yeah,
as a matter
I
of
can
fact.
tell. What an incredible journey and two different, very different careers, but
Yes.
how they really came together and the different communities that you've built along the way
Yeah.
is beautiful, and the respect that you've gained because you've always been true to who you are and true to what you believe in. I think that's so important and beautiful. So it's incredible that where
Thank
you've come
you.
from.
I
So
enjoy it.
um, so my last question is, do you consume? And if you do, when was the first time? What was it like? And if you continue to, what is your preference of consumption?
My first time consuming, I think I was 18, and I am dating myself. Okay. Because let me see, 18, that would have put me back almost 50 years ago. And I was like, I wasn't quite sure what to expect because it was smoking a joint.
Yeah.
At that time, my friends and I, we were just finished up high school and everything, and we wanted to try it. Let's see. Because during that time, that was the early 70s, when, everybody was consuming during that
Everyone was
time.
trying to,
Yeah,
yeah.
everybody. So, it was okay. Okay. I've never been a big consumer of alcohol. I really don't care much for alcohol. I'm one of those, as they call, social drinkers. I can have a drink and it'll last me all evening. It's one of those. Keep putting ice in my glass, okay? That's what you do.
It's perfect.
So, consuming cannabis was that for me. I enjoyed that better than drinking or anything. And so I stopped for a long period of time. And especially being in the fire service, being a prosecutor, I couldn't see myself, consuming during that time with those
Yeah.
particular careers that I had. And then once I retired, and I would say probably maybe 5, 6 years ago, intermittent. I'll consume flower off and on, and that's it for me. All of this other stuff that I've learned about out there, the wax and this and that, I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, flower is still the only way to go in my mind, so off and on.
I still love a joint. It's still my
Yeah,
preference. Hmm.
exactly. I mean, if you're going to consume something, to me, it's like good old flower.
Yeah.
It
Unless
grows
I need,
naturally.
unless for medical purposes, then like the tinctures, the elixirs are good for
Yeah.
that. And those are always helpful, but
And I do use some tincture CBD.
mhm.
I do that because I do have type 2 diabetes. I don't mind saying that.
Okay.
And the CBD that I get is useful in treating my diabetes and also pain, because sometimes I have a little arthritis in my hands. And I found that CBD treatment works wonderful. And believe it or not, Autumn, with this particular strain of flower, it relieves pain in my hand. And I was amazed when it first happened. I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I'm manipulating my hand, my fingers really well. And I said, oh my God, some of these cannabinoids that are contained in this
Anti-inflammatory.
particular strain, it works. It really works. So if anything, that's what I love, is not feeling that pain of the
That's,
arthritis, because it's very painful, very
yeah.
painful.
I kind of already feel a little onset myself. And
Yeah.
we have a topical that we've made that is life changing for me. Like
Oh
anytime
my
I start to
God.
get that cramping, like when I write, or it
Yes.
just like opens it all up and makes a huge difference. So
I'll have
cannabis
to
really,
inquire about that
yeah, I'll
with
get you
you.
some.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
absolutely. Well, our question of the day is always, how do you elevate daily?
Through prayer.
Through prayer.
Through prayer. That is number one for me. When I open my eyes in the morning, the first thing I do is thank the Lord. I will literally say, "Good morning, Lord." People think that's funny, but I tell them, this is what I do, people, every single morning. And I will ask Him to guide my steps, to let the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart be acceptable in His sight. Lead me into who I'm supposed to meet for that day and to be a blessing to them in some way, fashion, or form. And when I carry my day, starting it like that, it just elevates me to be the best person that I can be and to always remember to count my blessings and from whom they come. So that's how I start my day. And that's what
Sounds like
elevates me throughout the day.
I love it. Sounds like a day starting with a full cup for
Yes,
what you have to tackle through the rest of it.
exactly. And there is always a fire, believe me, always a fire. But, I've learned that peace and calm through that. And I know that my profession's really grounded me for whatever people call emergencies. Most times I tell folks who will call, oh, I got an emergency. I'm like, your emergency for me is like a 3. It's not a 10. Okay. It's a 10 for them, but it's
Yeah.
not a 10 for me. Because when you've seen probably every emergency that you can imagine,
Hmm.
that is not a 10. So it really has shown me, and people always ask, how are you so calm through this? Well, because it's not a 10. And even if it was a 10, I've been trained well enough to act upon the crisis. And then I can think about it after it's all done. And that's the way I've carried myself throughout my careers. You do a mental block on what you may be feeling or thinking emotionally. You apply your skill set and get the job done. And then you can act emotionally about it, cry about it, or whatever the case may be. But do your job. Do your job first and put all the other stuff behind.
Well,
So,
what an incredible journey, Yvette, and what has made you into such a strong, bold, and just successful woman. I loved it. I love it.
thank you.
This podcast is an extension of Autumn Brand, which was formed by the passion and knowledge of two families that focus on wellness, balance, and a higher self. Our family farm along the coast of Santa Barbara County uses sustainable farming techniques, natural sunlight, and pesticide-free cultivation. You can find our products in dispensaries throughout the state of California, or we can deliver directly to your home in the Santa Barbara area. Go to autumnbrands.com and follow us on Instagram, autumnbrands_ to learn more. Thank you, Yvette, so much for coming on today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Autumn.